the energy in this room is just fabulous. And of course, you know, I think that may have something to do with Reverend Kelly. And I was also truly honored 4 years ago to probably about the minute to be with you and Howard as you proclaimed your love for each other. And wow. And you have a good sense of humor too. And really humor, that's one of the things I tell couples when I'm counseling before marriage. You gotta have a good sense of humor if you're gonna have a good marriage, right? So that's important. And, you know, I try to have a good sense of humor about the weather, you know, right? Really? You know? I mean, April showers bring May flowers, I get it, but, you know, how many flowers are we going to have, right? But true, it's true, it does bring May flowers, and it does bring a lot of greenery. I love to see the trees as they're starting to bloom, and the grass, and I look at the yards when I go for my walk, and, you know, there's mine with the dandelions and the violets and all of that, right? And then there's the guy down on the corner who has the most meticulously kept lawn I have ever seen in my life. And so it brings to mind this idea of the grass is greener. Where? On the other side? On the other side? Yeah, so, you know, that's an interesting thought. It was something my mother brought up a lot. I'm going to go completely off of this, so... My mother brought that up a lot when I was young. She said, you know, every time I wanted something that I didn't have, she'd be like, you know, Eileen, remember, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And I'd be like, what? Eye roll? You know, what are you talking about? I really want this. I want the Barbie dream house, you know. I want the go-go boots. I want, you know. But anyway, it was a long time before I really got the deeper meaning of what that metaphor really was all about. And that is, of course, to not be jealous, to not covet. Something we hear in a very familiar scripture, I think, right? Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thy neighbor's house, thy neighbor's goods, or anything that we believe is better than what we have or what we are. And of course, we know that's not true, right? It's easy, of course, to live from that point of view, is it not? That there's nothing out there that's better than what I have right here. I don't know, this morning I was thinking, boy, these people keep time better than I do. You know? And then I thought, what am I talking about today? Who cares, you know? Or, you know, people might dance better than I can dance. How about you? Anything? Can you think of things that you find yourself thinking, gee, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. Sing better. Oh, well, yeah, you don't want to hear me sing. It's enough to watch me dance, right? Yeah, you don't want to hear me sing. But, you know, we hear those words, thou shalt not covet, and it sounds like a command, and it's taught to us as a command, is it not? Most of us were probably taught that it's a sin to covet. It's a sin to be jealous. Well, is it? Is it a sin? I guess that depends on how you see what a sin is. So a sin is what? It's an error. It's a mistake. So why is it a mistake? Why is it a mistake to covet? Well, when I'm thinking about someone else or something else being better, or I'm thinking, gee, a sunny day would be a lot better than this rain, where am I? I'm not here. I'm not right now. I'm not in this place. I'm not centered in the truth of who I am. And where do I want to be if I truly want to experience a life where the grass is greenest right where I am? I need to be right there in that center. And that's easy, right? That's always easy. You know, it's funny, I knew quite a while ago that when I came to visit you that I would be speaking on this subject.
Oh, wow.
But, I tend to go back and forth. What is it you really want me to say, Spirit? And I'm kind of should I talk about this? Should I talk about that? But this was on my heart. And last Sunday, I got together on Zoom with a couple of other Unity writers. We get together once a month to share feedback on each other's writings. And we always start with a 5-minute free write to a prompt. And it was my turn to bring the prompt. So I have this book that has 300 writing prompts in it. I open it, put my finger down, and it says, "Have you ever thought the grass was greener on the other side?"
Wow.
And explain. So interestingly enough, that was powerful enough. I'm like, okay, there's my answer right there. God speaks to me in the most amazing ways. But the three of us wrote to that, and we all wrote from a different perspective. Marge, my friend Marge, wrote from the very literal understanding. She said, yes, indeed, her neighbors on both sides had way greener grass than hers. And she said, it's understandable, though, because they both have been farmers and they know how to cultivate the grass, and it's really important to them. She said, but it doesn't bother me a bit because I really love the wildflowers and the wild strawberries that grow in my lawn that draw the deer into my yard. So she got it. She got it in that very literal sense. And then my friend Audrey, she wrote from the allegorical point of view. She wrote about the greener representing something in her life. She said her husband and most of her friends are retired. So at times it seemed like retirement might be just a tad bit greener than working, wondering when am I going to get to do that? So she experimented a little bit, and she went golfing with her husband, and she went bowling with her girlfriends, and she said, not for me. I can relate to that. I can't do either one. Well, it's even worse than dancing. So, but anyway, she realized that she is happiest, life is greenest for her when she's working at something creative and making a difference, and probably will never retire, kind of like, she's a licensed teacher, same thing, right? Yeah. So she got it from that standpoint. So where did I go with that? I went to the mystical. Because I believe that there is not a jealous God in the sky doling out rules and punishments and rewards. I believe that God is the very essence of life, the omniscience, the omnipotence that permeates all that is, that permeates you, that permeates me. And why would this allness need to have rules? Why would the allness be jealous? Of what? It's the allness, right? So I went to the mystical. And in the mystical, I had to look at more than just what does green represent. I had to go to what is the other side? Is there another side? If we are all part of this oneness and this allness, is there another side? And if there's another side, if there is another side, what is that? Where is that? And could I be in that place and this place somehow simultaneously because there's only one space, one moment, one center in all the universe? That was a thought to think about. Those were questions I asked myself as we shared our work with each other that night. So the mystical assumes that God is the allness. And this is the premise from which I wrote the mystical arc. So you'll find in there, if you haven't, I know a lot of you have already read it, but you'll find in there that mystical idea is that God is the allness. And in that higher realm of being, there are not so much rules as there are blessings and affirmations. So when I look at something like thou shalt not covet, I see thou shalt have no need to covet. Yes. Thou shalt have no need to be jealous, for thou shalt not experience lack in any way. And when does that happen? It happens when we bring ourselves into our center. I'll have to find my place because I have really gone way off. I've told you all the things I intended to tell you, but not necessarily in the perfect order. Oh, perfect. Ah, is that it? Do we ever look at something else, somebody else, and think, oh, wow, they're perfect. They're more spiritual than I am, or they're more enlightened than I am, or they can do this better than I can. I know that it's true that some people can sing way better than I can, right? But we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be perfect. In fact, I've been reading a book called The 5 Invitations. Anybody read that book? Yeah. It's an awesome, awesome book by Frank Ostashensky. I have a hard time with that one, but Ostashensky. And he is the, I don't know, the founder, I believe, or he works at a Zen hospice center in New York. Can you imagine a Zen hospice center? I want to, if I ever need that, that sounds like the place I want to go, a Zen hospice center. And he says that wholeness is not about perfection. Wholeness is about nothing left out, nothing missing. Nothing missing. Sometimes we tend to put something that's about ourselves outside of ourselves, right? And we build a virtual metaphysical fence. But in this idea that wholeness represents nothing left out, we need to bring that in. We need to bring that in. And so this is how we get this other point of view, is by welcoming everything and pushing away nothing. How many of you are on social media ever? Okay. Well, not all of you, but most of you. Okay. So I've noticed this thing on social media, that people post equations, algebraic kind of equations, and people answer. And the answers are often quite varied. And I'm not a mathematician. I'm a very creative person. Math, not my thing. Never was. But I get it. I mean, I can certainly take care of my business, and I can certainly add, subtract, multiply, divide, and all of that. But you give me that long equation, and I go, I got to think about it for a minute. And if you put an n and an x in there, now you've totally lost me now, because I don't really care what n and x are. But anyway, I was looking at one of these equations, and I thought sure I knew the answer. I did the little thing in the parentheses, and then I went from left to right, and I came up with an answer. I posted it, and a couple of my friends real quickly said, no, that's not correct. Like, why? Why isn't that correct? And they said, because you have to follow a specific order. You see, the parentheses represent, the first thing, but then multiplication comes first, and then division, and then, I can't remember the exact order. See, math just comes in one and goes out the other. But I was like, oh, okay, so there's arbitrary rules like there is in grammar. Okay. So the following week, another equation comes up. I got the arbitrary rules now, right? I've memorized them. So I go through and I figure it all out, and I post the answer is 16. And then somebody else posts 1. And then several people post 16, and several post 1. Like, what? So I Google it. And sure enough, that equation comes up and about how it's posted on social media. And guess what? Both answers are correct. They're both correct depending on whether you use the U.S. order or the European order. It's a matter of perspective. Who thought that math had perspective? I thought it was all, this really got me going. How important perspective is. How important it is about how we look at things. The other thing that Frank brings up in his book is this Zen idea of welcome everything and push away nothing. Really? Do I have to welcome everything? I don't know about you, but I have some things going in my life that are difficult to welcome. I have a daughter who is estranged from our family, and that's difficult, very difficult to welcome. And yet when I do, when I welcome it for the gifts that are embedded in it, when I welcome it for the growth, for the healing that I know is happening for her, for the growth that it's inspiring in me, I can relax with it. I can relax into it. I can let it be. And I can learn something from that. We know that, right? Yeah. Those difficult things in our lives. It's difficult to welcome things like mass shootings. How do we welcome that? How do we welcome something that horrendous in our lives? I think the key really is to not push it away. To not push it away. Because when we push away, we resist. And what happens when we resist? Everything we resist persists. So not only do we look at the metaphysical of what is the other side, what is the fence? What fences are we creating when we resist? When I resist my daughter being estranged from the family, I create a lot of fences. I create a lot of really difficult energy. And if she were to walk in the room right now, we'd have to clear that energy in order for us to embrace again. So it's not helpful to create those fences. When I go to think about mass shootings, I think the fences are obvious, right? We've got some fences going on in the United States. We've got some fences going on, but if we could let go of those fences and welcome this as an opportunity to grow as a people, to see one another, to understand one another, and to get at the root of the problem, because the root of the problem is what's going on with our kids. The root of our problem is about feeling isolation, feeling different, feeling uncared for, feeling unloved, feeling hopeless. And they look out at the young people look out at a world and they go, oh, wow, what have I got to look forward to? It's up to us. It's up to us to welcome everything, push away nothing, and find the gift, find the communication, find the way to. For some reason, I'm thinking of the things I tell married couples, right? You have to be able to communicate. You have to have compassion. That means you got to feel for one another. You got to care. And sometimes you have to have a sense of humor. Maybe you just laugh at yourself. I've gone through some feelings of shame and blame and all of that. I just got to laugh at it, because all the time that I'm doing that, guess where I am? My other side is suddenly the past. My other side is suddenly everything that's happened up until this point. Now, what if we looked at that in trying to make a change in our world, not only in ourselves? If we go, I'm not in the past. I'm right here, right now. Let's forget that. That fence is gone. I'm right here, right now. When we welcome everything and push away nothing, we dissolve some of those fences we've created for ourselves and in our world. If you are focusing on the other side, I invite you to take a different look, have a different point of view. Frank Ostaszewski, the Zen master in the hospice center, tells a story about a man who was there in hospice and who had pancreatic cancer. Now you can imagine that might be a place you might build some fences, right? Because nobody wants to experience that. Pancreatic cancer is extremely painful. And the man had, the morphine button and everything, but it wasn't doing any good at all. It was really, really hurting him badly, no matter what. And so Frank went and sat with him, and he said, would it be okay if I just put my hand on your abdomen where it hurts? And he did, and he said, now I want you to just focus your attention on my hand. Not on your pain, but on my hand. And so the man said, well, I guess it's a little better, but it still really hurts. And so Frank moved his hand. He pulled it away a little bit. He said, can you focus on it now? Can you feel that hand? Focus your attention there. You go, oh, it's a little better. And then he got to about 2 feet away, and the man said, that's it. That's it. That feels wonderful. He'd moved his attention. He'd changed his point of view, his perspective. And what he had done was he had let down the fence. Do you know what A Course in Miracles, everybody know what Course in Miracles says about the fence, right? So in Course in Miracles, the fence is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea, wholeness. It draws a circle infinitely small around a very little segment of heaven, splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your, or the ego's, kingdom, where God can enter not. Now, I know we all talk about God within us, the power of God within us, but you know that God is not just within us. It's not in this little spot right down here. It's not here. It's here. It's everywhere. So when Frank did that, he encouraged that man to let go of the fence of separation that his body created and to acknowledge and become one with the greater experience of him, the greater energy. This is the place where the divine interacts with the divine. Imagine if we could meet the problems in our lives and in the world from here. You know, fueled by the heart, but from here, recognizing that our energy is one. Wouldn't that make a huge difference in our lives? In truth, the grass is always greener right where you are. All power, all presence, all creativity is within you and all around you. Let's take a moment to experience exactly what that man experienced. I'm going to invite you, if you're willing, to put your hand on your abdomen. And just feel that space. Feel that space. Feel the hand. Allow your attention to be completely focused on your hand. And then move that just a few inches away. Continue to focus on the hand. And continue to move. Maybe even kind of push against it and feel that energy. There's an energy there outside of you. And move it until you're a foot or so away. Focusing on that. Can you feel the energy? Is there warmth? Is there coolness? Is there strength? This is who you are. This is who you are. One with that energy of the divine, intermingling with the divine. An integral part of an incredible whole. No part left out. When we can do that, we can bring ourselves into that sacred point of view. That sacred point of view where there is wholeness and nothing is left out. Centered in the one power, one presence, one activity that we call God or Buddha or Allah. There is only one beingness. There is only abundance. There is only love. There is only sweet, incredible light. Divine interacting with the divine. And the grass, it's greener right here, right now. God bless.